This haunting occurred and is still occurring in Taiwan, in the home of a friend's Taiwanese wife. Friend's wife and family have a house in some mountain regions. The house was handed down to them by their grandparents and is quite old. Anyways, according to my friend's wife, she told them about the ghost that is haunting them, particularly her older brother, who had supposedly made friends with her after hearing her sad story. This lady ghost was the daughter of a family who had lived there that house many decades ago. She was raped and killed in that house by Japanese soldiers during the Japan-Taiwan War. Since it's her birthplace and with nowhere else to go, she stayed at the house. From what I heard from my friend, she reveals herself to the brother out of loneliness and lack of someone to talk to. Don't ask me why. She can reveal herself to anyone she wants to, it seems, from their talk. Anyways, this strange and worrisome news soon reaches the ears of their parents, who insisted to bring in priests to send the ghost away. Her brother and the family had a big fight about it, I heard. In the end, the family gave up reasoning with him and moved to the city side. From what I know, the brother is now living alone with the lady ghost. How true it is, you decide, but I am only telling what I heard. This isn't my own personal experience, but I would like to share it anyway because I was also around at that point of time. My younger brother has a habit of putting his towel on the window beside the bathroom, and he'll just grab it for it when he needs it. So like normal morning around 5 a.m. he did that, but that time, when he reached out for the towel, he saw a man's face at the window. We were living on the 8th story, by the way. He was so freaked out that he went to tell me. I asked him recently and he said that he really saw a man's face, without body, only the head. Author's note. Remember I once mentioned about a Taiwanese talk show that invites their local Taiwanese artists to talk about their ghost story experiences? Well, here's one that my friend watched and told me about. I'm not too sure how accurate is the story since it's from a TV program. It's passed down to me by word of mouth. This is just one of the 3-part series that I'll be sharing, so here's what happened in part 1 of A Taiwanese Ghost Story, Night at a Hotel Room. This artist talked about his experience in one of the Asian countries where he had to do some overseas shooting, although he did not mention which country he went to, but he did state that this country has many Chinese but isn't China. During the whole period of the shooting days, he and the whole camera crew had to stay in this hotel which has 18 floors. So happened this artist was staying on the 18th floor. On the first night, he went back to the hotel around midnight and was really very tired after the shooting. After he showered, he immediately got onto the bed, and while he was on the bed, he saw a flash of light outside the window. However, he did not take note of the flash of light as he thought it was just lightning striking. You see, he didn't bother to draw the curtains as he thought he needed to wake up at 6 a.m. the following day. At about 2 a.m., he was suddenly woken by strange and weird sounds. The sound seemed to be like something was knocking on the glass window in his room. Without much thought, he glanced outside and was shocked to see a lady's head appear outside his window. She was hanging outside the window upside down and was swinging in and out in a blink of an eye. She was swung herself inside the room. At the same moment, the artist felt something pressing against him and he was unable to move at all. The feeling remained with him for about 5 minutes, and as sudden as it came, it was gone. He immediately ran into his colleague's room as soon as he was freed from the feeling. The haunted pod village of Sanzi. Note: the pod village was torn down in 2009. Nestled along a short stretch of coastline in northern Taiwan lies a strange complex known as the Sanji Pod Village. This abandoned futuristic luxury vacation spot remains a complete mystery to locals and tourists alike. There are several stories surrounding the circumstances that led to its abandonment, but no one seems to know exactly why or how the site fell into such a state of disrepair. The wacky-looking space village is located in Zanzi, on the outskirts of Taipei in northern Taiwan. It was originally constructed for wealthy urbanites looking to escape the city on weekends. The most popular story of its eventual decline claimed a number of mysterious accidents ending in numerous deaths led to a halt of all construction. Locals believe the area to be haunted. I heard about this incredible site from my friend who did a photo series last May, and of course, in true globetrotting form, we added it to our ever-growing list of weekend motorcycle adventures. As we sped down Highway 2 towards San Z last month, I thought it would be difficult to find, but the area kind of jumps out at you. If you miss seeing the giant candy-colored Smartie-like pods looming in the background, you won't miss the massive broken-back dragon that seems to hover over the boarded-up entrance. We entered through a broken window and made our way through the complex and out into the main courtyard. It was eerily quiet. It was so quiet we could hear the crashing of the waves at the waterfront and the grass blowing. The pods were in various states of disrepair. Some had their entire roofs ripped off. Others had collapsed in on themselves. It was obvious that people had been living in some of them. The sheer amount of destruction was mind-blowing. We traversed the length of the complex, slowly circling the man-made pool and ramp that was supposed to house a mini amusement park for children. A long, white water slide lay in the murky depths of the pool. We couldn't resist the peek inside. John found a pod that looked relatively safe and we climbed up to take a look around. Inside, the destruction and shoddy craftsmanship is evident. It's hard to imagine these pods surviving the harsh summer and winter weather that northern Taiwan's coastline is famous for. The concrete stairs were uneven and crumbling apart. The collapsed roofs and walls are paper thin and would never have survived a tropical storm. The view from the windows is unbelievable. There are miles of unspoiled coastline. Close your eyes to the destruction and for a few minutes you can see how it was intended to look before it was abandoned. It would have been magnificent. Instead, it is nothing but a complete waste. I was on a holiday to Taiwan. I lived in a beautiful bungalow that no one was living inside. I lived there with my 3 children. Everything seemed to be in order until the second day I moved in. I was reading a book in bed when I saw a tall and beautiful lady, about 178 centimeters tall, dressed in a white gown. She had a sad expression on her face and her eyes looked sad, her feet not touching the ground. I asked her what was wrong, but she just disappeared. Feeling more surprised and scared, I went to sleep. Before I went to sleep, I prayed. The next day I woke up. I looked around for the lady, but she was not there. I went to eat breakfast and told my cousins about it. They said that maybe I was dreaming. That night, I looked for the lady again. There, she appeared again. Her eyes gloomy and her face had a sad expression. I asked her with a trembling voice, "Well, why are you haunting the place? You should tell me your problems." She showed me a photograph and I looked at it. There was a man in the photograph and there was the lady, strangled by the man. She then said that the man was her lover who had strangled her to death in that very same house. I kept the photograph and I showed it to my cousins, my children, and they were very shocked. Then they offered me to stay in their flat. My parents and sister and I lived in a mansion in Taiwan. My sister and I knew something weird was happening. We told our parents, but they told us that we were just imagining things. But we knew very well that something was going on. One night, my parents and sister left me alone in the house. I felt scared, and then what I feared most happened. The door just opened really fast. My eyes went back like something just entered me. When my parents came home, I told them everything, but then they told me the same thing. I got mad and told them to listen to me. They finally did and noticed the same thing. We called the father and he blessed our house. He told us that this mansion was too big and that an architect could not have built this house because it was too big, and whoever built this mansion had the intention of killing people who lived here. My parent and my sister and I lived peacefully in that house for 2 months until the same thing happened again. We were so terrified that we left that house and came back to Spain. 2 years passed and my parents and sister and I were curious about what had happened to that mansion in Taiwan we used to live in. We called and were told that since we left that house, nobody else had wanted to buy it because something bad is always happening. It's been a while, so it's unlikely anyone would read this except for the OP, but what the hell. I was in Taiwan one year when I was younger and I traveled to a busy night market. These are popular gatherings that usually operate in the evening. Nearby, I spotted a sign for a net cafe that was 5 to 6 story tall building. Thinking I'd fire off some quick emails, I walked in the dark, small entrance of the building. The building was older and hasn't been well maintained, but it's not out of the ordinary in Taiwan. The entrance just had a dark hallway that led to a small elevator. I pressed the elevator call button and entered. The elevator was new compared to the building, but I didn't think much of it. Like some Chinese buildings, there wasn't a 4th floor. It's considered bad luck since 4 sounds like death in Chinese, so I just read 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, which was usual. I looked for the floor the net cafe was at, 6th floor, and pressed the button. It lurched into action quietly and began to ascend. When it stopped, I figured it was my floor, so I instinctively began to step out. Right before stepping out, however, the sight outside the elevator stopped me. It was pitch black, only lit by the light of the elevator. It looked like it hasn't been occupied for decades, with some random pieces of furniture covered with white cloth or similar. It was a small building, so each floor was single occupancy, so I could see pretty much the entire floor just from the elevator. Thinking I must have gone the wrong floor, I checked the light that indicates which floor you're on. Strangely, there was nothing. None of the indicators were on, but the floor button to the net cafe was still lit, so I know I haven't gone there yet. All this happened within a couple of seconds. That's when I noticed a figure moving in the distance of the floor. It wasn't very visible, but I could make out what looked like a person dressed in some kind of gown, moving slowly towards the elevator. I was thoroughly creeped out, so I started pressing the closed door button. As soon as I pressed, the elevator light flickered off. I am this close to pissing my pants, and it's actually kind of freaking me out thinking about it to it. The lights flickered back on under a second and the door closed. The elevator jolted back to life. A few moments later, it opened again to the net cafe. I am beyond relieved at this point. I walked out immediately and sat down at a computer. After gathering my wits and bit, I walked over to the cashier's desk and told them what I saw. The girl walking there listened and her face turned a bit ashen, so I asked her if she'd heard of similar. She told me that she's never experienced it, but some coworkers and occasional customers have brought it up. Basically, the building has 6 floors and the 4th floor has a history. Apparently, the floor used to be a hair salon of sorts, until one of the employees killed herself there for some reason. She slit her wrist over the hair wash station and died. The store continued operations despite stories of weird appearances. When customers got their hair rinsed, the water would look a little red, like the customer was bleeding. Little things like that, and a couple people reported seeing someone's figure walking away in the mirror. Naturally, the business closed down a few months later. The building owner tried to re-rent the place out, but never had any luck. Most businesses are quite superstitious, and no one wanted to rent the 4th floor after someone had died in it, even at a very cheap price. Finally, after dropping the price to nearly nothing, a stationery supply store wanted to rent. During the renovations of the floor, however, several accidents would happen. Tools would end up in strange places. A mirror from the previous business shattered when no one was near it. And finally, a worker had his hand jammed between the elevator doors when it closed on him unexpectedly. The workers refused to continue working, and finally the business left and the building owner finally gave up and shut down the floor. He then had the elevator company come in to replace the panel so that the elevator could not go to the 4th floor. Let me repeat that. The elevator was programmed to never go to the 4th floor. It doesn't even have a button. But for some reason, sometimes when people take the elevator, it would go to the 4th floor and the doors would open. And some, like myself, would see a figure walking around in the dark. When I was about 5 or 6, my parents took me to Taiwan for a vacation. If you went to Taiwan before, you know that it's a bustling place with skyscrapers towering over you. Anyways, I was very excited at that time. Mom wanted to shop for cheap goods at the famous Shilin market and already planned our activities there. So we arrived in a Taiwan airport several grueling hours later. After stamping our passports and everything, we boarded a coach with some others to our hotel. I still remember the hotel was a charming little building with a huge swimming pool. I felt sorry as I didn't know how to swim at that age. That night, we took it easy after unpacking. Dad offered to get some snacks for us at the shops downstairs and went down. I was doodling on a notebook when the lights went off in a strange manner. One by one, they switched off and turned back on again. I thought it was weird as neither Mom nor I was anywhere near those switches, and they were untouched. Poor Mom freaked out and dragged me down to meet Dad. I was woken up every single night too by someone or something ruffling my hair. At first it was gentle, then it became rough. I was sure it was not my parents as I was sleeping on a separate bed. I resorted to pulling the duvet over my head. On the last night, Dad was bathing. We heard a muffled cry, but Dad continued bathing. When he came out, he said there was a shadow growing behind him in the shower. Supernatural or just overactive imaginations? Still, I won't be visiting Taiwan again for sure. I can't believe this is a 5-star hotel. I upgraded my hotel to this one too, and without doing research online. I ended up at this haunted place paying a ridiculous amount of money to live at this haunted place. Before coming here, I'd already heard stories from friends with experiences here. Unfortunately for me, I had these experiences as well as my relatives staying in another room. Right when I entered the hotel, I already felt a major headache. I had never had this feeling before. For all the foreigners that aren't in the know, these decors in the lobby of Asian-looking charms are to keep spirits away and are quite well known for that purpose. There were 2 massive ones beside the elevators going down to the parking lot, as well as 2 similar jade ones right by the check-in desk. Also, if you notice carefully when you enter the hotel, above the driveway of the hotel is a weird chime inside. This is also for feng shui purposes. So we got our rooms and went to the floor, and right when we got out of the elevator, we noticed all the paintings on the walls are disturbing. There are some generals killing spirits. What kind of hotel has this kind of creepy decor on the wall? Oh right, a ridiculously haunted one. So we went to our room and actually switched twice before we got a less creepy room, which was still haunted unfortunately. So I noticed that when I walked towards the back end of the room where the desk was, my headache gets especially bad, so I avoided it at all costs. Normally I'm not afraid to sleep in the dark in hotels, but at this one, I was totally creeped out. So I was sharing a bed with a relative who was fast asleep. Same situation happened in my other relative's room. One fell asleep quickly while the other one got spooked the whole night. So I didn't sleep the whole night but kept an eyes closed due to the fact that I could hear 2 very distinct snores. One coming from my left, the couch and the desk, and one from my far right, which was my relative. When there wasn't snoring on the left side, I could feel someone walking and I heard the footsteps and I could sense they were quite close to me. This happened the whole night and I only opened my eyes when the sun came out. As for my relative's room, someone was flushing their toilet the whole night. She even went inside the washroom to check it out and the water was being drained, so it wasn't a faulty toilet. She said that this only occurred when she tried to sleep, so they were trying to keep her up. Anyways, this went on for 2 more days, but if you notice carefully, there are many odd placements of decorations around the hotel, which are definitely for feng shui purposes, as this is known as one of the most haunted places on earth. Note, 4 rocking chairs outside the side entrance of the hotel by the bus stop. Very, very odd. Putting my spooky experiences aside, this hotel needs a serious renovation. Everything is so outdated. Even with its prime location, I would never ever come near this hotel ever again. If you really want to experience paranormal activity firsthand, stay here. I've heard people had much worse experiences than me. I used to be a normal, ordinary kid, but then things took turns for the worst and now I don't even know myself anymore. It all started one night not a few days ago. I had gone to sleep around 3 in the morning. For any of you who don't know what 3 in the morning is, it's also referred to as the haunting hour. I was really tired, so I quickly fell in a trance of deep sleep, but that was when things started going wrong. I would usually just spiral into one of my meaningless dreams, but this time it was different. I was standing in the middle of somewhere. It was pitch black, so I couldn't see anything, when all of a sudden, a glowing red light, almost like fire, appeared in front of me. Then it started to get bigger and bigger, until the fire looked as if it would engulf me in one swoop. But then the fire started to morph into a person. It turned into a deadly pale person with long black hair and a patch of matching eyes. He walked up to me and said, "Join us, for you have much untapped power within you, and if you are to stay where you are, I was part of the light, aka heaven. You will only get slaughtered like the rest of the humans and angels. We have always been the ones at the very bottom. This is not supposed to be a pun, and we will not take it any longer. We will start the war, and by the end, we will be victorious. No one left to stand in our way, so join us." He outstretched his hand as if to invite me over, but as I pondered over it to accept the invitation or not, I was awakened by my cat named Marcus. "I don't know what to do with this experience. Please help me out in any way you can, but please don't argue about anything on my experience." I'm Taiwanese. My English is not very well. If the words fail to express what I meant, please pardon me. My story happened 3 years ago. It is in Chinese New Year. My parents and I went to a hot spring hotel to enjoy the vacation. The structure of our room is interesting. The second floor is a normal bedroom including a TV and a double bed. The first floor has 2 parts. One is a Japanese style room, another is a big bathroom including toilet, shower, and a big hot spring bathtub. The point there is no partition between the 2 parts. You can see the whole bathroom at the Japanese style room, but there is a curtain separating each other. Things happened in the night. My father and I slept on the second floor. My mom slept on the shakedown in Japanese style room. When I went out of my bed to pee at dawn, I found my mom wasn't in the Japanese style room. When I came back to the second floor, I saw my mom was sleeping near a double bed. In the morning we woke up. We asked my mom why she went to sleep on the second floor at night. She appeared to be mysterious and nervous and didn't say anything. She insisted that she would tell us after leaving the room. When we ate breakfast at restaurant, she told the thing happened to her. Last night she was a little difficult to sleep because there were noises of firecrackers nearby. In our culture, people play firecrackers in Chinese New Year. Eventually she did fall asleep. Then suddenly she felt a numbness from her foot to head. It felt very bad, and it is hard for her to move her body. So my mom started to read the 6-word spell of Buddhism in silence. It didn't improve the situation, and she started to read the words with sounds. Then she could move her body. She didn't dare open her eyes. She grabbed the bed quilt and rushed to the second floor. After the story, my dad and I laughed at her because it seemed that she experiences paranormal events frequently in our family. Such as when my mom was a child, one day she peed in a bamboo forest. At the time, she saw a little Japanese child with a kimono watching her, and then disappeared. But at that time, Japanese colonizers retreated from our country at least 20 years ago. Another thing happened to my mom when she was young. One night, she walked home from the train station. When she walked on a bridge, she felt she was stuck. Many bicycles and cars passed through her normally, but she just walked around and she couldn't leave that bridge. Finally, she came home. It was 2 hours later. We called the situation the ghost obstruct in our country. It means that there was a ghost trying to trap someone at a certain place. After all, my mom thought this event is a ghost pressing bed. It's a proper noun in our country too. It means like a ghost presses on a sleeping person and doesn't let him move or talk. She said maybe someone died in that bathtub before, but we don't think so. In our culture, if someone died in a hotel, the staff would put flowers or hide a Taoist magic figure in the room, but we didn't see anything like that. And besides my mom, nothing happened to me and my dad, so we think it's more possible to be the sleep paralysis. Nevertheless, afterwards, I think it's not very well to sleep in that Japanese-style room too. Just imagine someone sleeping there all night alone, opening their eyes, incidentally, see the curtain floating by wind nearby in the empty bathroom. It's truly horrible.